It is the first Friday of June. Maybe you have some travels coming up here soon. Well, so does the president's top team. How London is calling as the next phase of the U.S.-China trade war now comes into focus again. Plus, is this fan interference? Remember this event a week ago? How the Pittsburgh Steelers are now responding to their players appearing alongside President Trump. Also this evening, he was the center of a major immigration debate and a big focus for Democrats. Tonight, charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like.
How the country is responding tonight, including Democrats who came to that man's defense. But first tonight, here from the Hill. Did we just see the big chill? Day two, but not really deja vu. After Thursday's heated exchanges, both President Trump and Elon Musk today sort of cooling it down. Did you say Trump's talking? Is that what we have? Let me toss it. President of the United States aboard Air Force One.
Deal that's bring us a lot of money and a lot of everything else. And we get along very well with President Xi and with China.
Mr. President, on the one big beautiful bill.
Contracts, do you feel like the U.S. can survive without them? Obviously, you contribute a lot when it comes to defense and space, and that relationship has been important for quite some time.
I think the U.S. can survive without almost anybody.
And do you
except me?
Did you have any concerns about his drug use when he was working with you?
I don't want to comment on this. I don't know what it is. It's national. I read an article in the New York Times. I thought it was frankly sounded very accurate.
You said earlier today that Mr. What did you think of that? Did you discuss him?
I don't want to talk about problems. I think that I think the United States had problems. Look at the numbers today. The numbers were unbelievable.
All right, that was President Trump aboard Air Force One. Obviously, you could tell there. Feed not the best, the audio not the best. We're going to try to figure out what the president had to say. Let's send it over to Kelly Meyer, live over at the White House tonight. And Kelly, we're going to try to decode there what President Trump was saying. We'll have some notes here in a second, but it seemed like, and this was kind of the way I was going to set you up, we'll see what the president has to say. There was a little bit of a cooling down today, I guess you could say, between the president and Elon Musk.
Yeah, and I think our ears and people at home were trying to make out what he was saying there, but the audio wasn't that great. I was like, oh, what did he say there? So we're waiting anxiously to get those notes in and see what he had to say about Elon Musk. This was the first time we really saw him speak to the press today. He had two events, both were behind closed doors. Then when he left here to board Marine One, I tried to shout, did you speak to Elon? He didn't take any of our questions. But as you mentioned today, it seemed like a bit more of a cooling off period today. You know, the president was speaking, kind of saying earlier that he wasn't bothered by what Elon Musk said yesterday. He was trying to play it off and play cool that he didn't care. And it seems the dust has settled, at least for now. That red Tesla that the president bought from Musk still parked not too far from me the last I checked, though a senior White House official did tell us the president is going to sell it or get rid of it. You see it there. And a senior administration official also telling me today on Musk turning on Trump that it's all about his pocketbook, they told me. But there are some more signs today about the things cooling off here. Musk hasn't really been posting as much, but he has kind of returned to that in the last few minutes. He did post a response to that hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman calling for peace, saying, quote, you're not wrong. And then he did post not too long ago saying, quote, Congress is bankrupting America. So he's going back to pushing back on that big, beautiful bill. So we'll be watching to see what the president had to say about Musk just moments ago. Blake.
I keep refreshing our urgent feed here, Kelly, and still haven't got them in just yet, as I know you are.
I know.
But when we get those notes, we'll pass them along, as the president was asked about Musk. Kelly Meyer over there at the White House. Kelly, thank you so much. All right, so we want to take a step back here and look really at what's at stake, or at least some of it, because for Republicans and for Musk, there could be a lot of money on the line. Musk's businesses, for example, have some pretty big contracts with the federal government. Just think about SpaceX's rockets, NASA as well, Tesla, Starlink. those have government contracts as well. Now, according to a Washington Post analysis, this is according to the Post, they estimated that SpaceX and Tesla have received some $38 billion in government funds over the years. And many of those dollars have come in just the past few years. Now, just last year, Musk's companies were promised, for example, $3 billion in nearly 100 government contracts, most of them for SpaceX. But there's also money on the line for elected officials as well. Musk says President Trump, and that back and forth that was going on yesterday, he said that the president would have lost the election without his help. Plus, Democrats, he said, would control the House right now. Here's how much Musk donated in the past cycle, upwards of some $291 million to Republicans. That is according to Open Secrets. And America PAC, the super PAC connected to Musk, continued that support this year when America PAC spent some $20,000 on 2 Republican House seats in special elections to elect eventually Congressman Jimmy Patronis and Randy Fine. Now, here's where Republicans stand right now on this sort of feud between Trump and Musk. 71%, this was a YouGov poll today, 71% said they would support the president, 6% in favor of Musk. About the rest said they were not sure or neither. When you look at those who responded, some 3,000 folks on the whole, 28% said Musk, said Trump rather, 8% said Musk, 52%, or basically half, said neither. Joining me now here on the Hill, Republican Congressman, the aforementioned from the state of Florida, Jimmy Patronis. Congressman, thanks for being back with us tonight. Appreciate it. We await to see what the president had to say there. But basically, up until this point, as we know it, do you believe that we saw some sort of a cool down today between the two?
Yes, you're going to see a significant cool down. At the end of the day, Donald Trump is president of the United States. He is the leader of the free world. And Elon Musk knows this. But these are 2 very passionate billionaires that love America. They're used to getting what they want when they want it. Unfortunately, Elon has not dealt with Congress before the way the president has. And it just does not move as fast as any of us wish it would in government. So
do I hear some more? Do I hear some more pro-Trump and questions about Elon from you there?
Oh, no, I'm very pro-Trump. If that percentage survey you just showed me, I'd be in the pro-Trump silo. And look, I think Elon's great. Hell, my wife and I, we've got a Tesla, but at the end of the day, Trump picking a fight with, Elon Musk picking a fight with Trump is wrong for America. And he'll come back around simply because they both love our country.
So how do you square it? Because Musk, the PAC backed you financially, right? Yours was a race that was watched a couple months or so ago, and the president came to your side. He helped you. He gave you the endorsement. There was he campaigned for you, and so too did the PAC. They gave you, I believe, $10,000. So how do you sort of square the allegiances? Because it sounds like what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if I'm wrong, is sort of standing by the president and not questioning Musk, but more so standing by the president.
Oh, I'm 100% behind the president. And I'll remind anybody that's watching, and look, who elected me was Congressional District 1, the people of CD1. And I appreciate what Elon Musk has done with Doge. He's brought things to light that we're going to act upon in Congress. But at the end of the day, the only friends I look at making in Washington, D.C. is probably my wife and my kids. The friends I care about are the ones in Congressional District 1. And they elected Donald Trump. They did not elect Elon Musk. But you know what? We're one big family. We're going to get together. We're going to continue to fight for our country. You say it's the constituents that you care about, and I take you at your word, obviously, right? Your first bill was filed just earlier this week, and it was about forming a select committee to look into the last president, President Biden. Yep. And look, I'm from Florida. I was born and raised. I've worked there on many occasions. I know the state well. And so this poll didn't surprise me, Congressman, when I went and looked at the top issues for Florida. Rising costs of living, homeowners insurance, housing costs, taxes, wages. Biden wasn't on there at all. So why do you feel the need to go down that route? Because I'm obsessed with transparency. We had an administration for 4 years that drove our economy and our country into the ground. It saddled us with debt and decisions that were not in the best interest of strengthening our U.S. families. when you look at interest rates, insurance, those expenses that we had were a direct reflection of the last administration. So I want to get to the bottom of who was making those decisions that drove our economy into the ditch. And, you know, at the end of the day, if there's nothing wrong, if nothing comes forward, great. That's what I hope. But if there's something there, then maybe we need to reinforce those guardrails to ensure that we've got a White House and an administration that is truly cognizant of their decisions and not being driven by an auto pen or a handful of handlers that are guiding this country down a direction that left us in the mess that President Trump inherited in November.
For all the talk about the last administration, President Biden, and for all the talk right now about the other side of the aisle and Republicans, question on Polymarket. Let me leave you with this. Will Musk create a new political party by the end of the year? A quarter of the country says yes, at least according to Polymarket. 74% say no. You think he goes there?
No. Look, Elon Musk is not going to create a new political party. What you're going to see is what Elon Musk does. I mean, what Donald Trump typically does. I don't know how many times I've seen Donald Trump throw Lindsey Graham out by the side of the street and say the guy's crazy. But then you know what? The next week they're playing golf together. This is no different. Trump knows that sometimes you're going to have falling out with those that you trust, you like, that you're friends with. It happens with us in D.C. all the time. So again, mark my words, about a month from now, these guys will be hanging around again. I don't know. Look, he may sell the Tesla. I'll buy it. You know,
you'd buy his Tesla.
I would. It's pretty. It's red. It's gorgeous.
Okay.
Yeah, right. But you know, I don't know. I got to get a deal though. I don't pay full price.
All right, we'll leave it there. Jimmy Patronis, Republican there in the state of Florida. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right, still to come tonight here on the Hill, the Oval Office and America's pastime. The Major League Baseball commissioner, Rob Manfred, did you hear what he had to say this week? He said that President Trump played a role in getting Pete Rose reinstated. There was one person I wanted to talk to about this story, and he joined us. George Will with us tonight here on the Hill. Stick around for that. Plus, anyone and everyone, those are the quotes in the Biden administration, could be a target in the House GOP's investigation. So who could be called to testify next?
Our nations together have endured a bond intertwined by history, and we share this hallowed ground underneath our feet, dedicated and consecrated by the blood of our heroes.
81 years ago today, the images you know them. Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, and we will show you some more of those moments when the Hill continues. We thank you for being with us tonight. It is a Friday after all. It's beautiful weather here in Washington, like mid-80s or so. Hope you're having a good one. Stick around with us. I'm back in 4 minutes. All right, welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. Perhaps no president in the modern era has influenced sports more than President Trump. The president has infused himself, for example, into football, NASCAR, golf, UFC, and more. Now, exactly 1 week ago, Mason Rudolph and Miles Killebrew, who play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, spoke at the president's event at U.S. Steel.
Awesome to be here, a part of this big investment in Pittsburgh. Go Steelers. How about this president of ours, huh?
Now, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette has since reported that the organization sent upset fans an email saying that players can make their own decisions. And earlier this week as well, Major League Baseball, the commissioner, Rob Manfred, acknowledged some presidential involvement. Manfred says he reinstated Pete Rose after a conversation with President Trump, a Rose fan. Now, baseball, as you know, banned Rose from the game because he bet on Cincinnati Reds games that he managed. Manfred now saying, quote, the president was one of a number of voices that was supportive of the idea that this was the right decision. Obviously, I have respect for the office and the advice that he gave. I paid attention. Now, Rose has recently passed away. He never made it to the Baseball Hall of Fame. George Will, senior political contributor for NewsNation, who I would also add, a baseball expert, wrote one of the best-selling books in the game. Mr. Will, always nice to have you on, sir.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate it. Rob Manfred saying basically President Trump got involved with this whole Pete Rose decision. There's a lot of baseball fans sort of on both sides of the equation, right? He should be in the Hall of Fame. He shouldn't, etc. with reinstatement. What do you make of sort of this presidential involvement here?
It would not have happened if Donald Trump had not said with characteristic colorfulness that Major League Baseball should get off its fat I'm quoting the President of the United States.
Okay.
And put him in the Hall of Fame. Now, a number of things Mr. Trump doesn't understand. Major League Baseball doesn't run the Hall of Fame. It can't put anyone in the Hall of Fame. Mr. Trump may not know that Pete Rose went to prison, not for betting on baseball, but for tax evasion. Details like that don't bother the fan in chief, but they matter to some people.
Stephen A. Smith, you probably know the name, drew the line of, okay, if this happened, then maybe is there something on the other side of the equation? Here's what he said. I want to get your reaction.
Let's keep our eyes on what President Trump does on behalf of Major League Baseball down the line. Because if it's anything, then that would mean baseball really didn't do this out of the kindness of its heart. They did it because they were expecting a favor in return.
Is there something there, or is this purely just about the president's affinity for Pete Rose?
I think it's just about Major League Baseball's trimming itself to confer what a president wants. Major League Baseball took the All-Star game away from Atlanta a few years ago.
That's right, I remember that.
Because Joe Biden had said that some mild changes in Georgia election laws constituted voter suppression and Jim Crow 2.0.
Right.
The new voting laws coincided with record-breaking turnout in Georgia. So if they're supposed to suppress turnout, they were a terrible failure. Okay. But it was just Major League Baseball, like a weather vane, going with the political winds as they said. Now, guess where the major All-Star game is this year? Atlanta. Good guess.
Back in Atlanta. There you go. Different sport, but I guess sort of political winds. The president was there in Pennsylvania last week talking about U.S. Steel, and you had Mason Rudolph, who was, I guess, the starting quarterback at the time, no longer. But either way, a pretty big figure there for the Steelers. One of his teammates come out, they gave a speech, and I guess that upset some fans who aren't friends of the president or fans of the president. And the Steelers reportedly then put out this email basically saying, you know what, they said, quote, they generated a range of reactions from our fan base. They went on to say fans, the players rather, can make their own decisions that reflect their views. Should the Steelers have felt the need to respond to this as an organization?
The Steelers, like Major League Baseball, should learn the beauty of silence, the virtue of reticence, and the fact that half this country nowadays is angry half the time.
Yeah.
If Kamala Harris had been president and some people showed up there to thank Kamala Harris for, as they say, saving the steel industry, the U.S. Steel Agreement that President Trump reached is enormously popular in Western Pennsylvania. Fine. But why does the institution of the Steelers have to get involved? Just be quiet. People understand these things. There are 77 million people voted for Mr. Trump. Some of them are Steelers, it turns out.
You want to give me a Super Bowl or Major League World Series pick before you go? No, I'm joking. You don't have to do that. Mr. Will, always appreciate it, sir. Nice to see you. Thank you so much. All right, still much more ahead tonight here on The Hill. Kilmar Abrego Garcia back in the States tonight after his deportation to El Salvador, now facing criminal charges for human smuggling. The DHS secretary blasting Democrats. So what does that side of the aisle have to say now? And London is calling. Why the top players in the Trump White House are now heading across the pond, and we are just getting a transcript of what President Trump had to say today about Elon Musk. The president asked, can the U.S. survive without Musk's contracts? Quote, the U.S. can survive with almost anybody except me. What else he had to say tonight when The Hill returns. Jessica Anderson right here, joking with Jessica, by the way. All right, it is a Friday. It's just about 6:30 here on the East Coast. Thanks for being with us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Berman. Nearly 3 months after being deported to El Salvador, Kilmar Abrego Garcia tonight back on U.S. soil Abrego Garcia, the man who was in the headlines for weeks after he was deported by the Trump administration, with the courts later saying the government had to bring him back. Well, this afternoon, the Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing that he is indeed back in the United States and being charged with 2 federal counts: conspiracy to transport aliens and unlawful transportation of undocumented aliens. She also revealed that over the past 9 years, Abrego allegedly made more than 100 smuggling trips, including immigrants and minors.
We're grateful to President Bukele for agreeing to return him to our country to face these very serious charges. This is what American justice looks like. Upon completion of his sentence, we anticipate he will be returned to his home country of El Salvador.
Comes after Democrats, including the Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, the Congressman Glenn Ivey from Maryland as well, responded to the Trump administration's actions by going to El Salvador, pushing for his release. Elsewhere here in this town, Republicans up on Capitol Hill are investigating President Biden, his physical and mental condition while in office. The House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has subpoenaed now former President Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Sources telling NewsNation that the investigation is expanding further to include interviews with more Biden officials, including possibly the former White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. Now, President Trump has called this one of the most dangerous and concerning scandals, as he says, in the country's history.
I said it during the debate, and I say it now. He didn't have much of an idea what was going on.
Mr. President,
he shouldn't be. I mean, essentially, whoever used the auto pen was the president.
Joining me now here on the Hill, Connor Lamb, former Pennsylvania congressman, and Dan Cannon, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaigns. Hello to you both.
Hey, Blake.
Thanks for being here. Nice to see you in person in studio. You're in the shirt. Explain why you were here in town for.
I came right from a rally on the National Mall for veterans against all the cuts at the VA, so I apologize for being under.
No need to apologize. It's 1 trillion degrees outside. All right, so 2 different stories here, right? But let's start with Abrego Garcia. I guess one of the questions, and 2 Democrats here, so I want to hear from your side of the aisle, but one of the questions is, as the DOJ levels all these charges, what now? As Democrats ran to or flew to El Salvador, embraced this case, now the DOJ is saying this is not a good guy.
Well, if that's the case, they should have done this to begin with. So I think what the Democrats did was stand up for the rule of law. They stood up for everyone's rights under the Constitution, which apply whether you're someone that has committed crimes or whether you're not. So the fact that they are actually bringing him back, and for the first time in months, they're actually going to put up their evidence in a court of law and let a jury decide it, I think that's a good thing. And Democrats should be happy about the fact that by fighting for the rule of law, they actually achieved the result that there's going to be a trial.
You want to take up this fight right now that Pam Bondi has come out with all of this?
Well, I think it's right. The evidence will show what is there and what's not there in terms of the criminality of any of his past conduct. But this was never a fight about him as an individual. It's about the due process requirement under the law. Look, Antonin Scalia, an anathema to Democrats, consistently would say that it is the separation of powers and due process that separates us from every other banana republic with a Bill of Rights. That's the difference. And in this case, the courts and the pressure to actually apply due process won, and that's great.
You know what's going to happen. You just ran a pretty big campaign. You've run campaigns. You going to run for Congress again?
Not anytime soon.
Okay. All right. If you were, they're cutting this ad of what you basically just made the argument for standing behind him, and you as a campaign manager would have to defend it. And that's kind of what's coming, right? From the other side of the aisle?
Maybe it is, but I have to say, I've run in some pretty red areas and overcome, big margins against my party. I think what people want to know is, do we really stand for and believe in the things that we take a stand on? And I would encourage my fellow Democrats, keep taking this same stand, because we would take the same stand for you and your family that Senator Van Hollen took for this guy and his family, because that's how the Constitution works. That's how the law works, and that's what we believe in.
And Blake, on the politics, to be critical of my own party, I think we did not have a strong or coherent answer on the border or on immigration the last 4 years. We just did not.
And that's why I wonder if you're almost taking a step back here.
Well, but what I think is true, despite that failure of us to communicate well and have a policy and a posture that met the moment, it is still true that you can be strong in immigration, you can be tough on the border, you can be for the rule of law in a way that is very prosecutorial and efficient and smart and tough, but still before due process and not sending people to foreign gulags without any evidence whatsoever. The American people will buy that.
So how do you, because the next thing that's coming is President Biden, right? And you obviously were involved with the campaign at a very high level. The calls from the House Oversight Committee run by Republicans in the House and the possible subpoenas are coming. Here's the thing. In 2017, right, Steve Bannon, Kellyanne Conway, Stephen Miller, Jared Kushner, they were all stars, political stars. Folks knew who they were. Mike Donnellan, Anita Dunn, Ron Klain, Bruce Reed, Steve Ricchetti, these are all high-level figures, Dan.
Yeah.
American public doesn't know those names. They don't know those faces. They're about to know them soon here in the upcoming days, months, and weeks. What happens from your side of the aisle when they start getting called up to the Hill and start asking some pretty tough questions?
Well, I can't speak for them individually, but
no, I'm not asking you to. I'm just generally.
Sure, but I think, look, we're going to have this pull to sort of lurch and hide and duck for cover. And, I've been on the show several times. I asked about those questions. I've been on Air Force One with the boss. And I'm not shy about my experience. My experience was someone who was in command of the campaign, who had some bad days here and there, obviously. But I think those guys, if they're called to testify, if they're compelled to testify, they will. They'll do so truthfully and honestly. I recall in an 11 p.m. flight after a 4-state tour where the president did a masterclass in foreign policy for 20 minutes in response to something happening contemporaneously at that moment. They'll make those judgments on how to participate in this process. But I will also say that James Comer and the Oversight Committee and every single House Republican has abdicated their oversight responsibility of this present administration, whether it's Doge and Elon Musk, also unelected.
But you guys are going to get your shot on that potentially if the House flips in 2026. You know how all this goes. But you look back at the other administration.
But I think the veterans there at the former congressman's rally today would prefer there's oversight now as veterans being axed and fired from the VA as we speak. So look, I think they can do this for politics, and they will, especially as Donald Trump is making hundreds of millions of dollars from meme coins and pardoning nursing home scam artists who have donated to his campaign. They will distract from that. These folks will testify truthfully because that's the kind of people they
are. Joe K reporting, quote, anyone and everyone, Connor, working at the senior staff level in the final 100 days could be looked at as a potential target for an interview or a deposition, including Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah, I think we're forgetting that we're talking about the gang who couldn't shoot straight when it comes to investigations and oversight. James Comer was a laughingstock last year because he spent 2 entire years promising to get to the bottom of Hunter Biden and Ukraine and all that, and came up with a big fat nothing at the end.
But the American
that's all this is too.
The American people don't know James Comer.
Right.
They know Joe Biden.
Yeah, sure.
And they know what they saw over the last several years. Right, so I guess that gets to the point of what happens when those folks are being called in and asked the tough questions.
I think at some point it's going to dawn on the American public that the Republicans have been trying to tell the same basic story about Joe Biden for years, and they can't land a punch because there's nothing there.
You don't think it's going to be, I saw that, I know what I saw, and I want answers?
I don't think so. We just had the big tell-all book come out, right? And those guys have done how many interviews? Probably hundreds. There's not a single allegation that Joe Biden did not make a decision he was supposed to make or sort of allowed someone else to take over the powers of the presidency. None. There's nothing. And this auto pen thing, it's just a fantasy.
We'll see what those folks have to say. I promise you we're going to bring the folks in from the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the break as well, but wanted their perspective on 2 big stories. Dan, Connor, hang around, both if you don't mind. Live look at the White House right now. The president was just asked about Elon Musk. He was aboard Air Force One. The cameras were before. We've got the transcript, and I'm going to tell you what he said on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Tonight, a Banfield special report, The Smoking Gun. Banfield digs into key evidence that could make or break some of today's biggest cases. Brian Kohberger, Diddy, Sandra Birchmore, and more. Banfield, tonight on NewsNation.
All right, welcome back here to the Hill on NewsNation. I'm Blake Berman. Thanks for being with us on this Friday night. I had this whole setup, this whole thing to talk about on what's Donald Trump going to do this summer. After all, it's 80 degrees here in Washington. It's beautiful. Maybe your summer plans are coming out. But nope, we're scrapping it all because the president was just asked about Elon Musk aboard Air Force One, and now Musk is speaking as well. Here was the president moments ago when asked for his latest reaction on Musk. Watch.
Honestly, I've been so busy working on China, working on Russia, working on Iran, working on so many that I'm not thinking about Elon. I just wish him well.
Just wish him well. And then Musk, just moments ago, posted this. Remember, he put on his X feed a poll about if he should start a new political party. He said, quote, "The people have spoken. A new political party is needed in America to represent the 80% in the middle, and exactly 80% of people agree this is fate." Musk then goes on to say, the America Party. How about that for a little Friday night news? With me now, Dan Cannon, back once again, former Battleground States Director for the Biden and Harris campaigns. Lance Trover, former spokesperson for Doug Burgum's presidential campaign. Denise Gitsum, fresh off a flight from Cali, NewsNation political contributor. And Connor Lamb, former Pennsylvania congressman, in his shirt if you weren't watching because he was rallying here for a rally, and it's a billion degrees. Hello to you all. Happy Friday. Thanks for being with us. All right, I'll start with Denise. So the president today, it was kind of a de-escalation with Trump and Musk today, and it seems like Trump's trying to get past this, maybe?
That felt like a burn to me.
You think that's a burn?
I felt like that was a full-on diss. Like,
Okay.
to be like, well, I've got real problems in the world. As leader of the free world, I'm dealing with, presidents, and then who's Elon? It's like, and it's really sad because I think Elon hasn't figured out that you may be the wealthiest man in the world, and he was well before Trump got in, but you're not the leader of the free world. And guess who gets all the headlines? Trump.
You thought that was a burn?
100%. I mean, look, the Wall Street Journal had this line in a story recently that said that Trump had said about Elon, he's 50% genius and 50% boy. I think this week was 100% stupid on his part, to Denise's point. I mean,
in what sense? From a political, from a business, and
all of the above. His entire business is based on government contracts, number one. Number two, he supported Ron DeSantis. Trump never had to let him into this whole thing, and Trump did. And there is no legitimate political operative in this country who believes that somehow Elon Musk elected Donald Trump. Donald Trump elected Donald Trump. So, yeah, I think this was a total burn on his part. Yeah, I'm way too busy. I ain't got time for you.
I'm listening to everything you're saying, but I'm going to my phone because in our feed, when the president was asked about Musk contracts, can the U.S. survive without the Musk contracts? He said the U.S. can survive without almost anybody except me. Basically, throwing a little shade to the contracts.
I mean,
is he like the new BFF of the left now, Elon Musk?
No, look, he torched his customer base. He's torched the government contracts. This is a very bad decision on his part from a business standpoint, certainly. But can I make a political point? I don't think Elon Musk elected Donald Trump. But there is this interesting alliance within the Trump base. I think it was the Mooch who said they are socially conservative but fiscally liberal. It's a lot of the folks the Democrats used to have, a lot of Medicaid recipients, by the way, who are now voting like 50% for Donald Trump. And then you've got the folks like the Elon Musk, libertarian, futurist, technology, people you can reach online through that social media influencer class, who really became admirers of him and admirers of Trump's alliance with him. So I don't give Musk credit for that, but I think Trump capitalized on that sort of Venn diagram of voters there. And there's a real risk here that some of those folks follow Elon. At the same time, Republicans are torching their base by cutting Medicaid recipients to the tune of 9 million getting kicked off the rolls. It's a little problematic for the president right now.
I mean, just look, every minute that the president spends talking about this and fighting with Elon is another minute where he's doing absolutely nothing for the people who he campaigned, promising he was going to help. You remember him in the McDonald's drive-through window. The people who drive through McDonald's right now are getting nothing from this administration, and some of them have lost their jobs. They were just at the veterans rally I was at. Some of them are about to lose their Medicaid, or their hospital is going to close in a rural county that went 70-30 for Trump. And he's just forgotten about him. And this episode, to me, just shows that.
Well, I mean, let's look at the labor numbers today. So first of all, that's not really a thing. I mean, the economy's coming back. Inflation's dropped 3 months in a row. It's at the lowest rate it's been for 3 years. Consumer confidence went up 12 percentage points in May. And the labor market's solid. I mean, I don't know how you describe, I mean, you were a congressman, so I definitely defer to you in terms of constituencies. But it feels to me that if you're doing the one thing people elected you to do and you're keeping the economy afloat, then you're doing a pretty darn good job of taking care of the people that elected you.
Well, let me just add that Rasmussen last week had the right track numbers in this country at 50%, the highest they've been in almost 20 years. The president's approval rating is hovering around 50%. If I'm the White House, I'm not hating those numbers at all.
So That's the president commenting on Musk, and Musk giving sort of his view of maybe where things could go from here politically. The way that I was going to set this segment up was basically like what's before President Trump right now. It's not the start of summer. It is. It's June. Your kids might be out of school, right? We're talking about our summer plans. But he's got Xi Jinping to deal with.
Yeah.
He's got Vladimir Putin to deal with. Now, all of a sudden, on a much, 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 much different level, he's got Elon Musk to deal with. He's got the quote-unquote big, beautiful brawl, as Andy Ogles, a Republican, said to me yesterday, the big, beautiful bill, which is the actual name of the bill. And then when you look at the economy, Jay Powell has come out and said, you know what? The economy is in solid shape. Gas price is about $3. Stock market's been flat. But then you have this trade war, and you got to wonder, sort of, Denise, I'll start with you, where his summer road trip takes him in the next few months.
You know, I don't really know because I can't predict from day to day what's going to come out of the president's mouth. But I'll guarantee you one thing. Everyone's going to be watching because he has everyone wrapped around his finger from the media, from whether you're left or right or wherever you are. Every day is like a new chapter that used to take, months for things to happen. These things are happening every hour. And so what I do know is the president's going to follow through on the campaign promises that he made. You've seen him do it over and over and over. And so far, people are enjoying it.
Yeah, they're going to and look, going back to the Elon stuff real quick, his biggest complaint is about this reconciliation bill. It's going to pass. That is going to pass. There is going to be
the complaint isn't that it's not going to pass. It's that you guys are racking up debt just like the Biden administration.
No, his real issue
debt.
is the EV mandate. That's not the credits that were in there. Let's be honest. That's his real issue.
But he's been calling for cuts on cuts on cuts on cuts for a while now.
Yes, he is, absolutely. And they're going to try to codify those cuts in separate legislation. That's what I'm saying. I mean, he's known this was coming for a long time. I find his timing on this to be quite suspicious. But to your point about the president, I go back to the numbers I just cited a while ago. It seems to me he's got the wind at his back right now. And when they pass this massive tax cut package, Republicans are going to have a lot to talk about going into the fall.
What's before him?
They passed no legislation this year. Absolutely none. The only thing that the president's done in the economy is scare the world with tariffs, cut a ton of people, including veterans, and create tremendous uncertainty, which crashed the market several times. It's now come back a little bit, but it's still 4,000 points below where it was when Joe Biden left this economy. The reason Jay Powell thinks the economy is in okay shape is because Joe Biden left Donald Trump an economy in really good shape. 16 million new jobs. We achieved a soft landing, brought inflation from 9.3 to 3. Inflation's gone down.
It did ramp up on the ramp in.
Sure. But at the end of a global pandemic, we were in solid shape, and then they've taken this patient, amputated some legs, and left it on the operating table to take a break to go rail at Harvard. None of this is Donald Trump's economy in a good way, but when the tariffs actually hit, supply chains hit, job losses happen, it will be his economy.
Put your former congressman hat on for me. What do you think the summer looks like for him going forward?
I think it's just going to continue to be two billionaires fighting with each other over billionaire problems. That's what this looks like to me. So, yeah, you can cite a bunch of statistics, but the reality is the people who were doing well economically before are doing well economically right now. And there's an enormous group of people out there who are frustrated with high prices. They're frustrated with both parties. We can be honest about that, too.
Yeah.
But they wanted to see some action from this president on things that make their family budget better, whether it's at the grocery store or the big ticket items like college or housing. And he's not doing anything about it. He's going to make it worse with this healthcare stuff.
You sound like you're running. I know you told me you're not, but no, I'm messing with you, Connor Lamb. Appreciate it. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come here. Oh, by the way, speaking of still to come, I know that's Chris's picture up there. Chris, they give Chris time off every now and again. I'm actually working this weekend. I'm in for Chris. I'm hosting the Hill Sunday. And look at who we have. Senator Bill Cassidy, Congresswoman Elfreth from the state of Maryland. And we're going to be talking to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as well. I hope you join me 10 a.m. Sunday morning for the Hill Sunday. But before then, and still to come here on the Hill, the day that is this day and how we honor it and what happened overseas today. I'm going to share you one person's story, one veteran's story, 101 years old, when the Hill returns. Welcome back here to the Hill on News Nation. The saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But that is perhaps one of life's great understatements when you look at this image right there and you take it all in. 81 years ago today, the Allied forces stormed the beaches of Nazi-occupied France. In the ensuing Battle of Normandy, over 70,000 Allied troops were killed as part of a campaign that would eventually lead to the liberation of Europe. Now, many of those quote-unquote kids, they were teenagers in their early 20s at the time. Some of them are still with us today. And right now, they are around 100 years old. And in what is a beautiful and solemn tradition that takes place every June 6th, many of them gathered in Normandy today to commemorate the anniversary. And that included Wally King, 101 years old, seen here on the left back in his World War II fighter pilot days, and a little more recently there on the right, a first lieutenant in the 9th Air Force Division. Now, Wally would fly a P-51 and P-47 fighter plane, like these right here, allowing Allied forces to transport supplies during the Battle of the Bulge. It was in April of 45 that Wally's plane was hit by German artillery. He was forced to bail out and parachute over enemy territory with a broken leg. He was taken prisoner for 2 weeks. I mentioned Wally for lots of reasons, but one of them, he spoke today, and this was his advice.
I urge you all to consider the importance of having a purpose. During the war, our mission was clear: to defeat tyranny and restore peace. Purpose is what drives us, gives us direction to contribute positively to the world around us.
So as we end the week here on the Hill, a moment to honor those like Wally who are still with us, and honor those as well who stepped up to the fight when the world needed them the most. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on the Hill. I will see you on Sunday morning as well for the Hill Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern here on NewsNation. I'm Blake Berman. I hope you have a good one. Elizabeth starts right now.